Okay, Greg, you should see it.
No, not yet. I'm having so much fun with Steve and
I know.
Neglectful.
I know. I didn't want to stop you, but eventually I was.
Let's see. I'm looking on YouTube. I do see it. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Give me just a sec now.
Yep.
Ruben, I don't know if you saw this, Ruben, but the actor Christian Bale,
Okay.
has just broken ground to put 12 apartments for foster kids someplace in California.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
It's really amazing. Somebody just sent me the information about it, and
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm trying to figure out how to get a hold of him to see if I could get him or someone who represents him on the show.
Oh, we can contact his publicist or manager.
We could use a little star power, you know. All right, I'm going to share this to a whole bunch of places. So
I'll look into it for you, Greg.
Thanks, I'd appreciate that.
Yes.
I'm sure he doesn't take phone calls directly, right? But he's got a publicist.
Yeah, there's a level of steps you have to go through.
There was a country singer who wrote a book called The Walk to Nowhere about his experiences as a foster child. I forget his name now. He was really popular about 6 years ago when I found out about him. And when I called them, he wanted $10,000 to be on the show.
Oh, really?
But it's a few years later, and he hasn't had a hit in a long time.
Well, if you want, I could reach out.
And his book is fabulous. If you're into foster care, like you can't put it down. You should buy it before you take like a flight to California so you can finish it.
Finish it.
You know?
Exactly. Well, I put it this way: it never hurts to ask.
Right. That's true. I worked for an editor years ago in Chicago. Who every month would send a letter to Elizabeth Taylor and Charlton Heston, you know, and a whole bunch of other like total A-list actors. And every once in a while, you know, somebody's coming out with something, and his publicist says, "Okay, fine."
Oh yeah. Well, you know, we had our string of actors and celebrities that came to the studio.
That's right.
So, you know, it's all by, you know, chance, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I could probably name drop a couple of people, you know.
Yeah, there is an element of randomness to it.
Yeah, it is. You'd be surprised. That's what I said. You know, it's such a Russian roulette because some, you know, we even had some people that like when we had William Shatner, you know, on about 4 years ago. He wanted $1,000 just to give a station ID. But yet I'm promoting your book for free. And all I wanted was a station ID. And I was like, wow.
We had Kazir Cohen speak at our student appreciation celebration. The Gold Star father.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He spoke at our student achievement ceremony a few years ago. We asked, he lives near where we are, and we asked him, like, would you be interested? And he was like, sure, I think that's really important. We love what you do. And he came and gave an amazing speech for free, just because we asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Steven? Yeah. Exactly. So you never know. It doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, all they could do is just say no, or I want $10,000.
$10,000.
But John Grisham lives in my town. Nothing. He will not do anything for us.
Wow.
But
And he's in a hometown native.
yeah,
Wow, you would think at least a hometown native would.
you think?
Yeah.
Throw you a bone. Throw me a bone, pal.
Wow. Well, Steven, just wait till his popularity goes down. He'll probably be like, "Sure, I'll do it."
Right.
But then you're not relevant anymore.
We'll still take it.
Oh, of course.
When I used to read John Grisham page turners.
Yeah.
But I hadn't actually noticed one in a long time. Is he still active?
I don't know. I see him at the coffee shop across the street from my office all the time.
Yeah, I hear you.
But nothing. But you'd think an author would be in on literacy.
Yeah, right. Was that Jimmy Wayne? Oh, I think it was, Robin. Now you know we have the chat box open, too.
Yeah, I have the chat box.
I think that was Jimmy Wayne. A Walk to Nowhere. Good book. Good book if you're into Foster stuff. Okay, give me just a second now, please.
Sure.
And we'll be all ready to go. All right, sir, whenever you're ready.
Okay. And take it, Greg.
Welcome, everyone. It is 6:19 on Monday night. Even though we're 4 minutes late, we're glad you stuck around because you are listening to the 249th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour right here on www.hamiltonradio.net Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. If you're new to the show, I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels. We provide one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to thrive. We try to help young people avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face when they don't have a proper safety net. And this program is brought to you once a month at this same time to talk about issues that affect youth who have interaction with the child welfare system in America. Ruben is on the big board tonight. Robin is producing. So good to have both of you with me, as always. And so good to have all of you out there listening from your computers, in your cars, in your offices in New Jersey, around the country, and believe it or not, in some odd places around the world. God bless you for tuning in. I'm assuming you can't sleep, but that's okay. This topic that we're going to talk about tonight applies to every geographic region. If you're in New Zealand, you need to know this, okay? This needs to be shared. So please share what you're hearing right now. I need you to hit the like and subscribe and every button you can find, because that's the only way this information is going to get out there. I promise you. In fact, I'll even make a wager with you that this is not going to be on the nightly news tonight. The only place you're going to hear this is here. And here's why. Here's why. I'm noticing anecdotally in my work with Age Out Angels that there is a remarkable influx of youth from many different foreign countries that appears to me at least to be more substantive than it was, like, say 5, 6, 7 years ago. Okay, now accommodating these children is, believe it or not, it's in the budget. For the last few months we've been breaking down the budget for the administration of children and families. And 12% of that $73 billion in 2023, and should be hopefully $94 billion in 2024, went towards an area called refugee and entrant assistance. Okay. And this is part of that. So there's money already allocated to take care of these children to some degree. Okay. So there's about 8-9 billion out there floating around to provide these supports. Now, many of the youth are apparently unaccompanied. So they end up, in the child welfare system, in the foster care system, and then it basically falls on the education system to essentially indoctrinate them into America via language arts, math, social studies, and science. Okay? Should be no big deal, right? Except it is. Okay. They walk in and people say, well, you'll need a few remedial classes, but give them a couple of years. And the theory is they'll just kind of catch up and move on to adulthood as contributing American citizens. Sounds like a good plan, doesn't it? But here's the rub. If the students are essentially uneducated in their original language, not only are they functionally illiterate when they come to America, they don't know how to learn. School is too confining. Some have even been severely traumatized, either before, during, or after their journey here. They don't know what studying means. They don't know what taking a test means. And here's the one that saddens me most of all. If you don't have the context in the language that you're speaking, you can't make the connection between knowledge and real-life application. You don't have the context to apply that information. And I'll be honest with you, it's a little on the frustrating side. Okay? And now we have a gentleman with us tonight. His name is Stephen Reid. And he's been working in this area for quite a while. And I saw a webinar with him, about 2-3 months ago, I guess it was. And it just totally knocked me out, and I have to share it with you. So Stephen Reid is the program manager for literacy volunteers in Charlottesville. What's the name of that second town, Stephen?
Albemarle County.
Albemarle, Charlottesville, Albemarle in Charlottesville, Virginia. He currently oversees more than 250 volunteer tutors. And so we're going to be asking him about what it's like to herd cats. And he provides training and guidance with curriculum and instruction. If you have 250 volunteers, in addition to his duties with literacy volunteers, Stephen leads a group of program managers and executive directors from community-based literacy organizations from across the Commonwealth of Virginia, focusing on sharing best practices and providing moral support. He's also taught in Texas, Slovakia, that's a small town in Texas, right? And New Hampshire, and he is just ridiculously busy and clearly has ADHD like me. Stephen, welcome to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to have you here. May I just ask you a personal question to get started?
Absolutely.
How did you end up going down this path?
So I was teaching high school in Texas, and like many high school teachers, I got very sick of the bureaucracy of dealing with administration and school boards and state boards of education. And it just got very frustrating to me. So I made the only logical decision. I packed up all my stuff and moved to Eastern Europe. Like you do.
Right, as is the custom.
Yeah, see, that's the normal choice. So there I started teaching English as a foreign language. And while I was there, it just kind of hit me. This is what I need to be doing. I enjoyed teaching high school, but there was something about adult education that really fascinated me. And then when I moved back to the U.S., I got a job working at the National Adult Learning Center in Nashville, New Hampshire. And that's where my career really took the path that it's on right now. I was working very heavily in with GED students, adults who had not completed their high school credentials for a variety of reasons, and I would help them get through that through their GED. I was also working with English language learners who were needing to build their skills in English just to you know, get a job and live successfully in the United States. I also worked very heavily with people who uh, had completed their GED, wanted to go to college, but they weren't quite ready to make that jump. So I worked with college transition students, and I became the college transition mentor for the New Hampshire Department of Adult Education. So I spent some time working with uh, programs all over New Hampshire, helping them set up individual programs to help people who have completed their GED or who are English language learners and but still don't quite feel they're ready to jump into a college or university. And so, what could we do to kind of bridge that gap between the skills that they may have had to graduate high school or graduate high school in their country, and then what they're needing to do to become successful in a college or university here in the U.S.
Right. Okay,
But this story started in Texas. My last winter in New Hampshire, we had 7 feet of snow. I don't know what to do with 7 feet of snow. So what I did was update my resume and moved south. Yeah, that's how I handled 7 feet of snow. Update the resume. And I ended up in Charlottesville, Virginia, and where I'm working very, very heavily with adults who are needing to improve their English language skills. And we work with students who are a large number of our students are immigrants, refugees who come to us just like what you were talking about, who have these this limited or interrupted formal education in their countries. And so they get to us with no literacy in their first language and maybe speak a handful of words of English. And my job is to get them to a point where they can improve their English skills up enough where they can function easily in our community. And then, they get better jobs. They earn their U.S. citizenship, all of the things that they need to kind of move their lives forward. But the hurdle is their English language skills.
Yeah, and the language is what opens doors.
Right.
I know that the first few English language learners I worked with who were illiterate in their or pre-literate in their original language had an amazing set of skills to cover up what they didn't know. Like it took me, I will tell you, it took me like a month to sort of break through that and let the person know that it's just you and me. You're not, or you and a tutor. You don't have to be humiliated. There's nothing,
right.
What
amazes me is with so many of these individuals, their memory is so good. Like they can remember phone numbers and like directions and all of these things that you just kind of lay them out and you steps in a process. You say it to them once or twice and they have it. And like phone numbers, I know my phone number. That's probably the only phone number I have memorized, mine. Like they're all in my phone. But because I don't need to remember them all, I can read them. They don't have that ability to read them, so they have to memorize them.
Yeah, it's really quite remarkable. I remember one time I said to a girl, "Look, man, I'm just trying to figure out what you can read and what you can't read. So do me a favor, just tell me the vowels." And she said, "You mean you want me to explain it to you?"
Yeah.
I said, okay, it was a fairly simple question there. If that's your answer, then I know where we are
Then you know where you are.
with
Yeah.
this. Yeah. So what we're going to do today, and by the way, if you're out there listening and you're a caseworker, you need this. If you are a teacher, you need this. And if you don't need it now, you will, because this is what's happening right now. And if you are a student, follow along with this and see if you can identify yourself in some of these things so that, when it comes up in your own classes, you could refer to this. So if I understand correctly, Stephen, we're gonna start with understanding, at least to some degree, what the pre-literate learner is.
Right. So I'm sorry, I've developed a bit of a cough all of a sudden. So about 14% of the world population is either functionally or fully illiterate in their primary language. And that equates to about 1 billion people worldwide who do not have literacy in that first language. They don't have the ability to read and write well. And if you look at some of the countries that we see lots of refugees from, particularly like Afghanistan, there's only about 38% of the adults over the age of 15 who can read and write in their first language. So only 38% can read and write in their first language. And so it's really important for us to be thinking about what can we do to help people as they're coming into the country to get them to that point where they can start picking up the language in English and then also getting literacy. But there are kind of several levels of literacy as far as what what their abilities are. There are pre-literate people who don't have any form of written language, like their first language may not have a written form. There are still thousands of languages, about 4,000 languages that do not have a written form.
Wow.
In the world today.
Yeah.
There's some that are still in the process of developing them, and some who have not even started developing their language yet. The dominant population we see coming into the U.S. Who are in these lower categories are the non-literate because they don't have literacy in their first language because of limited or interrupted formal education. This is usually due to things like war, famine, economic issues. That's what, and that's why they end up coming to us, because they've spent their lives, trying to escape a political regime that's oppressing big chunks of the population. We also do see some semi-literate folks who they've had 4 or 5 years of formal education. So they have some level of literacy. Typically what we see out of Latin America is, and these, again, a lot of this is going to be anecdotal, but when we're seeing people out of Nicaragua, Honduras, and what we're seeing there are people who have had 4 or 5 years of education, 6 years of education. So they have some level of literacy in Spanish, but it's certainly not to the point where they would be considered fully literate in their language. And then it starts jumping up to individuals who have full literacy in their language, but they don't have the Latin alphabet. They're coming out of a language like Arabic, and so they don't. The alphabet's completely different, and it even moves the other direction from English. Languages like Chinese, Japanese, Russian. So there's a lot of languages that they may be literate in their language, but they look at our words and go, "Yeah, nothing."
I studied Greek for a while, and
right.
And it so falls into it's like not, it doesn't sound as like off the wall as Chinese, but nonetheless, there's when you look at a Greek alphabet and
right, you're starting, yeah. Some of the Greek alphabet looks familiar because the Latin alphabet was based off of it, but they don't necessarily make the same sounds our languages do.
And when they make words, like the letters, you see them on frat houses everywhere, right?
Right. Yeah, we don't think about that. Those are actually just letters that are used to form words. We just see them as symbols for fraternities and sororities.
Exactly. We see them as art.
Yeah.
Why? So when students come here, what are the reasons that they aren't literate in their first language?
Typically what we're seeing is there are going to be things like political reasons tend to be the biggest thing. War, genocide, famine, forced migration. That is the biggest indicator of somebody coming into this country who does not have literacy in their first language. There are some cultural aspects as well. In certain countries like Afghanistan or lots of Central African languages, women are not educated. And so you're seeing, countries like Sudan, 75% of girls never even start primary school. Ethiopia, 40% of girls are married by the time they're 18. Burkina Faso, only 1% of girls complete secondary school. And so you see that as a big reason out of, particularly out of Central Africa. But you also have ethnic oppression in certain countries, the Uyghurs in China, the Kurds in Iran and other countries, the Roma population throughout Europe. So there's a lot of that where, because of their ethnicity, their education is limited. But one of the biggest reasons we see in many countries that are otherwise fairly educated or highly educated, because it's an indicator here in the US too, is poverty. 18% of the people in the US have low literacy, but 70% of welfare recipients have low literacy. So when you look at that population who are living below the poverty line, even here in the US, there is a connection to that poverty line and their literacy level. 82% of children who qualify for free and reduced lunches here in the United States are reading below grade level by fourth grade.
Yeah, it's so scary. And you know what? I was working with a young person today who has unstable housing. Yeah, how are you supposed to study algebra?
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't
how
think
do we
I
expect
could.
them?
Yeah.
Right. If he's not sure where he's going to sleep tonight, if he has no idea where his next meal is going to happen, or he knows that he's not going to get a meal until he gets to school tomorrow and has lunch in the cafeteria, and he'll be able to eat one meal a day during the school year, because that's the only time he is guaranteed food.
Yeah. It's how you're supposed to learn. It's crazy.
Algebra is not a priority for him.
Now, you have broken this down into the smallest unit of sound, haven't you?
Yes.
What is the smallest unit of sound?
They are called phonemes. So as you are taking language and starting to put it together to help the people learn how to read, you start by connecting sounds and letters. The smallest unit of sound is a phoneme. Smallest unit of writing is a grapheme. So, for example, the word dog has 3 phonemes: d, a, g. It just so happens that it also has 3 graphemes: d, o, g. And so putting that connection of the phoneme to the grapheme, and that's how we start putting them together to form words. And words, when we start putting words together, we get sentences and thoughts. But we take those phonemes, break a word down to that tiny little unit of sound, and then we put them into play. Now, we all know there's 26 letters in the English alphabet, right? But there are 48 phonemes. So one of the problems that we have in English, and for people who are learning English or people who are just trying to learn to read English, is that we have a lot of our letters will make multiple sounds, and they will also combine to make other different sounds. If you think of the two words Pacific Ocean, okay, Pacific Ocean, every C in Pacific Ocean is pronounced differently. Okay. So P-A-C.
I'm just getting a chuckle from it now.
C-E-A-N. The first C in Pacific is a S, the second one is a K, and the one in Ocean is a SH. So there's 3 C's in Pacific Ocean. All 3 of them make a different sound.
Uh-huh. And there are 48 of these.
And there's 48 of those sounds.
So,
but only 26 letters to get us there.
Right. So, but you know what this is reminding me of? Something I haven't thought of in like 50 years. Way back when I was in college, like a freshman in college, there was a new teaching alphabet. And so we're going back to 73, 74, okay? And it was called ITA, Initial Teaching Alphabet.
Okay.
And it was based on the 48 phonemes.
Okay.
And so if a child could catch on to this style of teaching, they could go like from 1st grade to 3rd grade reading overnight.
Nice.
Or, within a year. But if they couldn't catch on, they were hopelessly lost forever.
Right.
Which was terrible. So what should we be using this for?
So what you're looking for when you're starting with that student who is just developing those reading skills is how do we make that connection between this letter and this sound, or going the other direction. When we have a sound, how do we transfer it into the letter that's making that sound? And so looking at that alphabetic principle when you're working with your student is going back and forth between I hear the sound duh and I write the letter D, or I see the letter D and I say the sound duh. And so being able to transfer that back and forth, recognizing that relationship between the phonemes and the graphemes, that's the foundation of reading. How do you get that very first step moving forward? It's that foundation.
So you really drill it way down into drill work with the phonemes.
Yes, and from there you can kind of build on that, and you start recognizing patterns, and you help your student recognize those patterns within words. Thinking of cat, pat, hat, bat. The last 2 phonemes, the t, remains the same all the way down. And if you look at those 4 words, cat, pat, hat, bat, the only thing that changes is the initial sound. Those last 2 are following a pattern. Right. And so we help the student kind of develop the understanding of those patterns. Exactly. The problem in English is our spelling is a mess.
Yeah.
And so not everything follows the pattern.
English is a nightmare. There's nothing you can do about it. The door is ajar,
Right. Well, if you look at the letter combinations O-U-G-H,
right.
There are 6 common pronunciations of O-U-G-H in the English language. There's 2 other pronunciations that are less common, but yeah. So there's about 8 relatively common pronunciations of O-U-G-H. So rough, cough, thought, through.
Okay, now, as you're doing fat, bat, cat, sat, rat with a 13-year-old girl who would rather be anywhere else in the world, right? Can we introduce her to how this works in print so that she can be functional with it?
Yes. Well, I think the important part of whenever you're working with somebody who's just learning, I think a lot of people that when they're coming in, if we're looking at the folks who are kind of at the upper end of their uh, foster time, where they're in that system, a lot of them are starting to see, I am going to need to get a job soon. And so many of them are starting to make that connection to, there are some basic skills I need. And reading tends to be one of them. So I don't have lots of experience working with younger kids, those under about 14. Right now, I just am working with people over the age of 18, but I have some experience with that kind of 14 to 18 realm as well. And they are starting to see that level of, this is what I need in order to survive. And then when after they're at that 18 plus, it hits home pretty quickly. Oh, I need this.
Right. So when we're talking about print awareness to a 13 or 14-year-old, we might not be talking about read the New York Times, but we might be saying read the bus sign.
Yes.
Right.
So I am a big believer when I'm working with my students, the skills we're working on in class today, they should be able to use them tomorrow at work. Like, I want immediate application to everything that we're teaching in class. They need to be able to use these skills on their way home from the lesson. It needs to have that level of application. What am I teaching that they can use today?
Yeah, because I'm just thinking that there's an element of self-esteem that goes along with this.
Absolutely.
Right? And using it must make them feel empowered to some degree.
Yes. But the inverse is also true, that lack of having that skill can hurt self-esteem and lower their ability, their comfort in a classroom. So I think it's important when you're working with your student to make sure that they know that their lack of education is not their fault. And I probably have said to my GED students 10,000 times, I can't fix yesterday, but I can do a lot of help with tomorrow. And so that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can't speak to, what your education was like. I don't know who your third grade teacher was. I don't know what went on in that class. I don't know what happened in your refugee camp and what you were taught there. Unfortunately, I can't fix any of that, but we can look at tomorrow. And so what can we do to make tomorrow better?
That's a great thought, man. So what you're dealing with here is a blank sheet of paper, essentially.
Awesome.
Let's start writing letters and making letters sound relationships, right? And so that brings me to, are they comfortable using writing utensils?
Often, no. I've worked with people who've never held a pencil. People who've never been in a classroom. And so there are a lot of times where you have to be thinking about, helping your student hold that pencil. How do I move the pencil in such a way that, I'm writing, that I'm holding it correctly, that I'm able to write well. And so sometimes we have to back all the way up to there and start with that skill, those fine motor skills of writing their name. And that's one of those skills that's way easier to develop when you're 6 than when you're 26.
Why? Why?
Well, little kid brains just absorb language faster. It's just the nature of the beast. I always say that there are 2 indicators of how quickly someone is going to learn English when they come to me. First is their level of education in their first language. If you're highly educated in your first language, you're going to pick up English quickly. The second is age. Those little kid brains are in learn mode. I always say you could take a 4-year-old who doesn't speak a word of English, throw them out on the playground, come back an hour later, and they're fluent. Like, it's just, that's what they do. They pick up language. They will find a way to communicate with the people around them. They'll learn it. And they're little sponges that can do that. For us, like, I don't have that skill for my brain. I do not pick up languages that quickly.
Huh, that's interesting. Now, we're talking about letter sound relationships, right? And
Yes.
and there's been a kind of a debate in education about teaching whole words compared to teaching phonics. And so the next step in this is high frequency sight words, right?
Right. So I have long felt that if anybody comes to you and like, I have the solution. If you do this one thing, it's going to solve all your problems. I'm like, I don't need your snake oil. Because that's exactly what anybody who has this is your single solution to every problem. It's a snake oil salesman. So I believe that there are some words that you're really better teaching them, these high frequency sight words, where that every time they see THE, it's them. Like, it just happens automatically. But you also need to be looking at the ability to, to break words apart and sound them out, and looking at what the patterns are of other words that are spelled similarly. So getting that ability to build those high frequency sight words is important, but also getting that ability to sound out words, to look at, have that phonemic awareness. You have to put the two in practice together.
Not everyone even reads right to left, do they? Or left to right? I'm sorry.
Right. Arabic, Pashto, Dari, Urdu, they move right to left. Traditional Chinese and Japanese, Korean, and Vietnamese, the traditional versions are read top to bottom. Though they do have a left to right version from that they're using now in those languages, but traditionally it was top to bottom.
Yeah. And there used to be a great joke about a piano page turner who went to Israel to study how to turn pages in the other direction, Yep. But it actually applies, right? There are so many little nuances and details to this. This reminds me of that college assignment and we've all had it, where we're told to do something like write the instructions for how to pour a cup of coffee or something, right? And as you start to write those instructions, you get so lost in the minutia, of the thing. And this has that element of minutia. So, like, I'm thinking about now, they don't know how have they seen ruled paper?
Right. Some have, some haven't. Sometimes not every language writes the words in the same way on the paper that we do in English. In English, the bottom of the letter is on the line itself. It hits that line. We have a few things that dip below, but for the most part, it's on the line itself. Arabic in particular, or the languages that use the Arabic alphabet, actually the center of the letter is on the line. And that's how it's set up in their language. The center of the word is on the line, not the bottom the way we do. And so you'll see people who come out of one of those languages and they're looking, they will write in English, but in the middle of the line.
Stephen, listen, you're a real trooper, buddy. I'm going to give you a break to get a drink of water, okay?
I'm good.
You made it this far. Take a couple of minutes while I thank all the people who have contributed to Age Out Angels this week. God bless every single one of you. You are wonderful human beings. And I'm speaking specifically about my friend Sarah Gregg in New Jersey and the Church and Dwight Corporation. Those wonderful people who make Arm & Hammer baking soda that I'm encouraging everyone to keep in their refrigerator now, because they've been supporting us every year, year after year after year. And we are so very grateful to everyone, to the $5 donation, to the $5,000 donation. We love you all, and we need you. We need you. We're going nowhere without you. And with Easter coming up, I know you're going to be doing a lot of various sending of gifts to people. And if you're doing it from Amazon, I want you to consider putting us on your list for Amazon Smile. We'll get a donation each time you make a purchase from Amazon, and it won't cost you a penny more. It's just out of what you're ordinarily spending. So if you'd like, you can feel free to shoot me an email or private message me on Facebook or LinkedIn or any of the other 1,000 places where you can find me, and I'll give you a link directly to our Amazon Smile account, so it'll be easy for you to make that contribution. Anyway, thank you. We love you all, and we're going to keep doing this work. And a little piece of good news here about Age Out Angels, if I may, but we're about to hire. That's all I'm going to say. Back to Stephen Reid. Stephen, have we gotten to the part yet where they actually understand what it is that they're reading?
Hopefully they're getting through parts and pieces of it. We're kind of at that level where they should start picking up and understanding the context of the words they're learning. But typically, when learning the English language, speaking and listening come first, and people pick up those two skills before they pick up reading and writing. In most cases, reading and writing are a little bit harder, and so they are. It's important for them to pick up that those speaking and listening skills, and then we start transitioning into the reading and writing. What we find is that they're more comfortable reading things whenever they know what the object is they're talking about. If I can get them to write "this is a pen," but they know what a pen is, it makes it easier for them to make those connections.
Right. It just has context that way. Yeah.
Right.
So as a teacher, I think I'll bet I speak for every teacher in the world when our first instinct in this situation is to just teach the alphabet.
No. Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
But that's how we were taught, right?
Right. But you started learning the language 5 years before you started writing the language.
You got me. Yeah.
Speaking. You had been speaking it for your entire life.
Speaking, singing, all that.
Picked up a pencil.
Yeah.
So you already knew all those words. You just needed to put them on paper.
That's right. So, sometimes by the time a kid is like 5-6 years old, he's already in community theater. He's had that.
Right.
That sort of
already. Yeah. But if you think about the English, the Latin alphabet, we have 26 capital letters and we have 26 lowercase letters. And that's a lot. If you don't understand what those letters do, they are just a series of circles and lines and squiggles on a page. They don't make any sense because you don't have connection to them. So when you first start working with an English language learner who has no literacy in any language, start with the words that matter. Their names, their spouse's names, their kids' names, their addresses, their phone number. Pick up those words that they will be connected to. What are they going to understand the meaning for first? Once they can get that, and you start adding in, their friends' names and their dog's name, and you get all of those pieces put together, you can build the alphabet together and fill in the pieces that they may not have caught already. But start with the letters that matter. Start with the sounds that matter. And that's how you're going to not overwhelm them. Because if you just try to teach them 26 uppercase, 26 lowercase, here, memorize these right quick. To somebody who has no understanding of a written alphabet, they're lost.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, I'm assuming like we were sung the alphabet song,
Right.
right? When we were kids, we were
Right.
sung that, and
But
I
it made sense
remember,
when you were 6.
and also, but what I'm thinking of right now is a particular young lady who had a name that no one could pronounce. None of us could pronounce her name. And I took it personally because I feel like I'm pretty good at that stuff,
Right.
but I couldn't hear what she was saying, the sounds that she was making were just too far into my ear. And she was very turtled is the word that we use. She was in her hoodie, closed up and not open to teaching and things like that. One day, one of the teachers got her name right.
Yeah.
And then told us all. So now we all know how to say her name. And the girl started, being friendlier.
She started coming out of that shell.
It was her, and it was her name, damn it. It was her name that she didn't think we even knew who she was.
Right. But once she started having people who cared enough about her to learn her name, it started mattering. And she learned that these people care enough about her. And I had a student, he does have English as a first language, but when he sat down in my class the first day, he had a hoodie that was 5 times too big for him. And the hood was pulled down. I could see a little bit of his chin. And that was it. Like, no idea what he looked like underneath there.
Yeah.
But little by little, I started working with him more and more and more. And we were building up I was working heavily on his math skills and his writing skills to get him to pass that GED. And he was one of those who would just say, well, I can't write an essay. I don't have anything to say. I don't know. And he would just turn in a blank piece of paper. And I sat him down one time and I said, listen, if you turn in a blank piece of paper, I can't help you. If you write the absolute worst thing that's ever been written in the history of writing, it is an absolute disaster. It's a total mess. I can help you. We have something we can fix. I can build that. I can fix that. I can work with you to get that to where it's good. If you turn in nothing, I got nothing to. I can't help. But I challenge you, write the worst essay that's ever been written in the history of writing, and I can get you to pass the GED. And I don't know which of the two of us was prouder when he passed his GED, if it was him or me. But there was a contest going on there. We were both very proud of him. And now, like, I've never seen him with his hood up. He's like a very successful young man. He has a great job and a family, and just a great success. I'm very, very proud of him still. But we were starting in a deficit, but we got him there because I challenged him. Write me the worst thing that's ever been written.
Yeah, it's sort of a wondrous experience, isn't it, when you discover that underneath that hoodie there's actually a boatload of intelligence.
Oh yeah, he's a bright guy.
It's totally been suppressed.
Yeah.
Over the years, right? That happens. So hey, listen, I'm on a roll here. I thought first you teach the alphabet, so I'm wrong about that. And so do I ever get to teach parts of speech?
Well, the reality is that when you're working with somebody who isn't educated in their first language, if you take the word noun, verb, adjective, adverb, and you translate those into their language, assuming that you speak enough of their language, you can translate it in and say it to them in their language. They're still going to look at you like, I don't know what that word means.
Huh.
So by using the word noun, they don't know what a noun is, even in their primary language. So I wouldn't bother. I don't want to confuse them. What I do is I teach patterns. One of the things I like to do is I get a bunch of colored index cards, and I always use the same color card for the same part of speech. So all my adjectives are on green cards, all my nouns are on red cards, all my verbs are on blue cards, and so forth.
It's so cool.
And then when you lay them out and you're creating sentences, your students are going to start recognizing, okay, we have a green card, the adjective, the green cards, and the red cards, which are the nouns. The green cards are always in front of the red cards. It's never the other way around. Like in Spanish, where the noun comes first and the adjectives follow. In English, the adjectives are first and then the nouns. So all your green cards are before that red card. And you will have a different, you will follow those patterns of adjective, the subject noun, the verb. And you start seeing this pattern when you're building these sentences. They're always in the same color. If you let them discover that, they own it. It's theirs. It's their discovery. If I tell you green card, red card, blue card, it's mine, and I'm kind of forcing it on them. If they discover that it's always green card, red card, blue card, it's theirs.
Mm.
And they have it forever.
That is beautiful. I gotta tell you. Listen, we're gonna run out of time, and there's 2 questions I really have to ask you, and like you have to come back sometime because we're like barely scratching the surface here.
Right.
But how long? What's the typical length of time if you have a teenager, who comes from a foreign country and is illiterate or pre-literate? How long? Okay,
so it's going to depend heavily on how much time do they have to study. I'm guessing that a lot of these kids maybe have after school jobs and things like that. But if they are able to put in that normal school day, they're going to go from no literacy to reading kind of around a 3rd or 4th grade level is probably going to take them a couple of years. And then there's going to be another fairly big jump after they get past that 4th grade level. There's going to be a pretty quick jump up to 8th grade once they have those foundation skills, because their speaking skills are going to be going at a faster rate. So by the time they get to that 4th grade reading level, their speaking is way, way above it. Then they just need to start putting the pieces together, and that jump between 4th grade and 8th grade may only take a year, maybe 2. And then the high school period, getting them from the 8th grade up to like a 10th or 12th grade might also take another couple of years, because the vocabulary starts getting very, very difficult, and the sentence structure gets a lot harder too. So, yeah. If you're working with an adult, someone who is in their 50s or 60s, and they're coming to you with no literacy in their first language, it is not uncommon for them to spend 4 years at level 0. That is absolutely kind of almost expected, that it's going to take 3 or 4 years to get to a level 1. It's, again, those younger brains just learn faster. Older brains take a little more time.
It's a slog. You have to persevere.
But also with adults, they don't have the 6 hours a day in the class that a high school kid does.
Right.
So, the kids have that bit of advantage because that is their job. With adults, they are working full time. and maybe, I had a student one time who was working 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job. 100 hours a week was his norm
Yeah.
at his 3 jobs.
I've done that. I've done 107.
Yeah. And, and he never missed class.
He didn't have a girlfriend either.
Well, the reason he never missed class is because he was trying to get to pass his citizenship. It was very important for him to pass his citizenship because that's how he was going to get his family out of South Sudan.
Yeah, that's
the
amazing.
only way he could get them out is to become a citizen. And so he had to work that much and get his English up and pass his citizenship test in order to save his family.
That is just so phenomenal. What they and I was talking to a young person the other day from the Dominican Republic, and I said, "How are we perceived here?" Because there are times when I look at my own country and I think, God, we must look so stupid to the rest of the world. And occasionally I'll read a newspaper, from another place, and they say, actually, you do look stupid. But I asked him how we're perceived and why he came here, and he said, "Oh no, this is the land of plenty. This is the golden ticket right here. So if you want it,
yeah,
the milk and honey doesn't just come to you, but if you want it, it's here for you to get." So this might be the single most important question I can ask you, because you have 250 volunteers. Okay. All right. Now, we both know that volunteers come from all different walks of life. Some of them are retired teachers. Some of them are angry ex-social workers. Some of them are wonderful flight attendants and amazing nurses. There's all walks of life. They come to us, all ages, all attitudes. And you get it. You have the cultural sensitivity, to understand certain things. How do you impart that sensitivity to 250 volunteers so that they're extensions of you?
Well, that is part of my initial tutor training when I'm working with my volunteers, is we spend some time talking about what is life like for somebody who is brand new to this country. What's going on with them? How does it feel for them? What are they experiencing? And so we spend some time talking about, kind of the do's and don'ts of working with somebody from a different country. And I think it's very important that, for the most part, the people who volunteer with my organization, they're here to help. They want to help. And so they're open to the idea of, okay, I need to be more culturally sensitive. And so you just have to kind of point them in the right direction. I would say more of my volunteers would make a mistake in that front accidentally than on purpose. Like, it's just, they stumble across and don't realize they've crossed a line because they just don't know. One of the great things about what we do is the student and tutor get to know each other well enough that they can say, yeah, that's crossing a line in my culture, or we don't do it that way here. And so let's look at how we can fix that. And so it's useful for both parties moving both directions.
Yeah, I get
understanding anybody else's culture is always a good thing.
I wasn't thinking about that part now, about how easy it might be to actually offend someone, without even
accidentally,
right? Yeah, that's interesting. So we have a saying in marketing, that it takes a minimum of 7 touches for someone to even recognize you're there. Not necessarily know what you are, what you're doing or selling or anything, but to even know you exist, it takes a minimum of 7, tapping you on the shoulder,
right,
to know I'm here. Does that apply when we're talking about teaching words and language?
Well, yes. In the world of education, it can take about 5 to 7 positive experiences for a student to start feeling better about themselves. and about what's going on. So they need to have 5 to 7 positive experiences to kind of start moving out of their shell.
Uh-huh.
And it can take one to completely undo all of that. One.
Yeah.
One bad experience, one negative experience can undo the 6 positive ones that were getting you there.
Unbelievable.
So,
Well,
yeah.
The young man who you were talking about before, who turtled all up, how long did it take him to get his GED? Because he wasn't about to write anything on a blank piece of paper.
Right. It took him about 8 months. He was, I want to say he was about 19 when I got it. He had dropped out of school when he was 16, but if life had dealt him a different set of cards, he'd have been an honor student.
Yeah.
But because of what was going on with him, he dropped out when he was young. But he is bright. He learns quickly, and he just absorbs things well once you break through the shell.
Right.
But now that shell's not there anymore.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, as you break through the show, I think you're also teaching valuable socialization as well. That's sort of a twofer there.
Yeah.
You know, you get their attention, but you're also teaching them that to learn the difference between people who will help you and people who will hurt you. Because I think, you know, in the lives of foster children, hurt you is the one that they see the most, right?
Right.
What a show, man. You have to come back sometimes. It's
Absolutely. This was fun.
Pleasure meeting you and talking to you. I want to thank everyone at home for listening. Our next show will be in April, and I don't have the date yet, so I will have to fill you all in on Facebook and other places about that. Thanks to our producer, Robin, to our engineer, Ruben. Music provided by Mozart. I don't know why I get a particular thrill out of pretending he actually works for us. Stay safe, everyone. Until next time, remember, it's only Monday. There's plenty of time to make this week the best week ever. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Stephen, that was